Hey everybody, welcome back to One Seed, One World. I haven't done a video in like 2 months, and I figured I better get out here and shoot a little bit of video so that the algorithm doesn't forget who I am. We are now through the first week in November. I'm going to show you a little bit of my fall crops that are going on and some stuff that you can do in colder weather. What I've got here is a bunch of collard greens. Some of them have gotten super big, bigger than probably what they should be. Big green leaves. But I want to get some of these kind of cut out. We've had some nicer weather, like 60s during the day, 40s at night, sometimes 50s at night. But cold weather is on the way. In fact, tomorrow night, it's supposed to be like 29 degrees. So I wanted to get some of these collard greens cut back, and then I will cover them. And not just collard greens, I got some kale out here. I've got some carrots, some radishes that should have been pulled out of the ground like a month and a half ago. They're huge, and I'll show you those in a minute. But I got some random few crops that are out here that can do better in the colder weather. Now there's kind of a fine line when it comes to your colder weather crops, that things like collards and kale, beets, carrots, radishes, they are good with some frost. They actually might even enjoy a little frost. With some of these things, especially like with your kale, your collards, carrots, beets, frost will actually improve the flavor a little bit. It will make them a little bit sweeter, maybe take some of the bitterness out. And so you're good with some frost with some of these colder type crops. However, if you're going to get like a hard freeze, what you want to watch out for is it can do some damage, especially like things with like your carrots or beets, radishes, where if the ground like really freezes hard, if you're getting down into the 20s, they can kind of get mushy. And if the ground freezes too hard, of course, it's going to be hard to get them out of the ground. So you kind of want to watch what your weather is going to do and kind of make a decision on when you want to harvest some of this stuff, and then what you can do, because things like collards and kale especially, if you cover them with some plastic, if you can get like a hoop or a box that you want to set over with some like 6 mil plastic over it, they will continue to grow for you throughout a large portion of the winter. If any of you have been around for a while with my channel, you would have seen me harvesting kale out in like 6 inches of snow when I had it covered over with some good 6 mil plastic. So a little bit of plastic keeps the warmth in there during the, build up the warmth during the day, keep them warm enough at night so they don't get mushy or killed off. And you can be harvesting some nice greens out of your garden, you know, maybe all the way up to like Valentine's Day. And then at that point, maybe if you're starting seeds inside, you'll be back into planting season, starting onions and shallots and things like that, maybe inside. And so you don't have to ever really let go of your gardening season. So I'm going to get the rest of this of these collard greens cut out, and then we'll take a look at some of the other stuff I've got going on in here. Hopefully you can see me on the camera way over here. So I cut back all the big collard green leaves that I had. Generally, when you're trying to keep your stuff growing back over and over again, you'll want to cut like the bigger leaves on the outside and leave some of the center leaves to give it enough photosynthesis so they can keep producing. And I still have a lot of that in here, but I didn't really worry about it as much since we're coming into winter. I just kind of cut all the big stuff off. And then tomorrow, before the big crazy hard freeze comes in, well, I don't know if it's going to be a big hard freeze, but when you get down into the 20s, you know, I start to worry about stuff. I'll put some plastic over some of these greens and see if I can't protect them and keep them going further into the winter. I also found, and I think it's good, this big old zucchini. I had a couple of zucchini plants that I planted in August that gave us more zucchini than we knew what to do with for late summer and into the fall. And most of the plants are already dead, but I found this big zucchini in here, so that's kind of cool. Got that nice big zucchini there. So we'll set that there. The other thing I got going on back in here is some carrots that I planted super late. Now I don't know if these have really done a whole lot. They look, and I never thinned them out, so I probably don't have much of anything. Let me see what's going on. Ha! Nope. I think I planted them too late. There was too much cold weather. But this was a purple carrot, and there's kind of nothing really going on there. Part of it was probably because I didn't thin them out. If I had thinned them out, they may have gotten a little thicker to have some like baby type carrots. But I don't think these, yeah, there is some, you know, yeah, nothing I can use. That's unfortunate. But at least they all sprouted super well, had really good germination. I just didn't thin them out, and they never really got a chance to grow. And these were a mix of purple, orange, yellow carrot mix that I just kind of threw in here to see what would happen. But then I didn't follow back up with them. So I don't think we're going to get any fall carrots, thanks to my lack of thinning. Dog's losing her mind. So something else that you might run into if you plant some late radishes and not harvest them is you end up with radishes that are the size of beets. Look at that. I'm sure that's going to be pretty spicy, but it's in perfect condition, and I think this is edible. Whereas I've got some other ones. See, like this one here, some bugs got into that one. But then I've got some other really big, nice radishes that I think that we can use either just for slicing in a salad or maybe some roasting. And if you haven't tried roasted radishes, like with some other winter vegetables, if you don't like radishes because of the spicy pepperiness of them, try roasting them in your oven with some like olive oil, butter, some garlic, onion, some other winter type squash. If you mix them all up, it takes all that peppery out and just makes them very mild and delicious. And they will take on some of the flavors that you roast them with, like if you add the garlic, olive oil, onion, salt, pepper, any other spices you want to add. Try some roasted radish. Last thing I got here is a little bit of kale. There's a couple of rows here. This had been eaten all down. I don't know if you can see at this end part here that it's almost, there's a lot of bare stems, and actually all of this had been eaten down to nothing by bugs when it first popped up. But it has, once we got a couple of frosts, the bug pressure subsided, and now it's all coming back again. I'm not going to cut this yet because there's not a whole lot going on here. I could probably take a few leaves, but I think I'll let it grow a little bit longer, and I'll put some plastic over it when it gets cold tomorrow night. Up here, I've got some bok choy that went to seed immediately. I've never had luck with trying to grow these baby bok choy. They always go to seed and flower, it seems like, before they even form anything. And I even planted these, I think, at the end of August. And the few warm days we got just made them sprout and go to seed. So I'm still working on the whole bok choy thing. And then I've got some other, I think this is some Chinese cabbage in here. So these are things that, like, I'll get rid of the bok choy and I'll cover up the stuff with plastic that I think that will still grow throughout the winter. All right, so got myself a zucchini, a big pile of collard greens, as well as some radishes, 2 or 3 giant radishes, along with some regular sized radishes that we can use for our end of week 1 of November harvest. So you can get harvest deep into the fall and even into the winter with some of these greens if you plant at specific times like July, August, September. You can still do some planting for some of these things because they will sprout really fast. Things like radishes, especially certain types of radishes, some of them will be ready in like a month or less. So a lot of things like lettuces, kale, collard greens, Swiss chard, they tend to pop up pretty quick. Now, lettuce is not frost hardy, so you have to be careful of what your season is and when your first frost comes in. But you got other greens like the kale, Swiss chard, and collard greens that can handle those early frosts and even taste better after they've been hit with frost a couple of times. And then just remember with some of your, now I didn't have good carrots to show you, but with some of your root vegetables like carrots and beets, they can handle some frost. But if you get them started early enough and thin them out properly, they can also be harvested into the fall. So my gardening season is about at an end, with the exception of some of these greens that I'm hoping to continue to harvest for a while. Behind me, I've got my celosia area that is completely, the celosia completely took over this whole patch behind me. And now it's kind of dying off, but I've left it here because a lot of the pollinators will visit this until it's all gone. So I think I'm now, especially after we get the cold weather tomorrow night, the really extreme weather, that will probably kill the rest of it off and it won't be food for the pollinators anymore. And then I can clean this bed out and get ready to prepare for next season. So wherever that you are at, we're in your neck of the woods, whether you are still in a warm weather place where you're still planting and growing, and I know some of you are still harvesting peppers and tomatoes and that kind of thing. That's not happening here in Western Maryland, but there are still some crops that you can grow. And I hope that you are still finding some things that you can enjoy out in your garden even this late into the season or this late into the fall. But I appreciate that you're here hanging out with me again today. Even though I haven't been around for a couple months, I'll try to do better. I just haven't kept up with the YouTube channel as much this year as I have in years past. But we will see you again soon, and I hope you guys are having a fantastic season. Namaste.